There's a moment that happens to every new father. You're holding this tiny human for the first time, and suddenly you realize something terrifying. The man you were yesterday no longer exists. Your priorities shifted overnight. Your identity cracked open. Your entire worldview just got demolished and rebuilt in an instant. And nobody prepared you for this psychological earthquake. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote about the death and rebirth of the self, but he never anticipated how parenthood would become the ultimate test of what he called self-overcoming. Right now, as you watch this, millions of men are experiencing the most profound identity crisis of their lives, and they have no framework to understand what's happening to them. They went to sleep as individuals and woke up as fathers, trading their will to power for diaper duty, their philosophical pursuits for playground politics. But what they don't realize is that this transformation isn't the end of their authentic self. It's the beginning of something Nietzsche never fully explored, the metamorphosis from individual excellence to generational purpose. Picture this scenario. You know that guy who used to stay up until 3 a.m. working on his novel, traveling to remote countries on a whim, spending entire weekends lost in deep philosophical conversations. Now he's Googling how to install car seats and researching preschools. His Instagram went from mountain climbing photos to baby milestone updates. His bookshelf transformed from Nietzsche and Marcus Aurelius to parenting guides and child development theories. What happened to him? Did he lose himself, or did he discover something deeper than himself? The answer will change everything you think you know about masculine identity and purpose. Nietzsche taught us about the Übermensch, the individual who creates his own values and transcends conventional morality. But he never addressed the philosophical challenge of maintaining authentic selfhood while becoming responsible for another human's development. This creates what I call the father's paradox. How do you remain true to your individual nature, while your biology, psychology, and circumstances demand you become something entirely different? The men who navigate this successfully discover something profound. Fatherhood doesn't diminish the will to power. It transforms it into something more complex and ultimately more powerful. Instead of conquering external worlds, you're shaping internal ones. Instead of building empires that will crumble, you're creating consciousness that will outlast your flesh. Carl Jung understood something about this transformation that most men miss. He wrote about individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are. But fatherhood forces a different kind of individuation. You must integrate not just your shadow and anima, but your capacity for unconditional love, protection, and sacrifice. These aren't weaknesses to overcome. They're strengths to develop. The father who tries to remain exactly who he was before children will fail at both fatherhood and authentic selfhood. The father who completely abandons his pre-parenthood identity will resent both his children and himself. But the father who uses parenthood as a catalyst for conscious evolution discovers powers he never knew he possessed. Here's what nobody tells you about becoming a father. Your brain literally rewires itself. Neuroscience shows that men's brains change dramatically after having children. Your testosterone drops, your oxytocin increases, your prefrontal cortex develops new neural pathways. You're not imagining the transformation. You're experiencing biological evolution in real time. But here's what's fascinating about this process. The same neural changes that make you more nurturing also make you more strategic, more protective, more focused on long-term thinking. The father's brain isn't a weakened version of the bachelor's brain. It's an upgraded version designed for different challenges. Think about the men throughout history who achieved their greatest works after becoming fathers. Einstein developed his theory of relativity while raising children. Darwin wrote, "On the origin of species as a father of 10. Da Vinci never had biological children but became a father figure to his students and apprentices. These men didn't succeed despite their parental responsibilities. They succeeded because those responsibilities forced them to develop capacities they never knew they had." The philosophical question becomes this: does authentic living require complete individual freedom, or can it include conscious choice to limit that freedom for something greater? Nietzsche celebrated the lion who says no to external constraints, but he also spoke of the child who plays and creates new values. Fatherhood forces you to become both simultaneously. You must say no to certain possibilities to say yes to others. You must destroy certain aspects of your former self to birth new aspects of who you're becoming. This isn't compromise, it's conscious evolution. Jean-Paul Sartre explored the concept of radical freedom. the terrifying responsibility of choosing who you become. But fatherhood adds a layer Sartre never fully addressed. You're not just choosing who you become, you're influencing who another consciousness becomes. Your choices don't just affect your existence, they shape another's essence. This creates what philosophers call the responsibility paradox. The weight of influence over another life can either paralyze you with anxiety or motivate you to become the man you never thought possible. The fathers who thrive understand that children don't limit your potential. They reveal it. Every challenge your child faces becomes an opportunity for you to develop new capabilities. Every developmental stage they go through forces you to grow in corresponding ways. You can't raise a confident child without developing confidence. You can't teach emotional intelligence without developing emotional intelligence. You can't model resilience without becoming resilient. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations while governing an empire and raising children. His philosophical insights weren't separate from his responsibilities, they emerged from them. Modern fathers have the same opportunity. Instead of seeing parenthood as an obstacle to philosophical development, they can use it as the ultimate laboratory for testing and refining their values. Do you really believe in patience until you're teaching a 3-year-old to tie their shoes? Do you truly understand unconditional love until you're holding a sick child at 3 a.m.? Do you genuinely know sacrifice until you're working extra hours to pay for someone else's education? Fatherhood doesn't give you answers, it gives you better questions. Here's where most men get lost in the transition. They try to maintain their pre-fatherhood identity unchanged, while adding parental responsibilities on top. This creates internal conflict, resentment, and exhaustion. They feel like they're failing at everything because they're trying to excel at incompatible approaches to life. The bachelor's priorities don't translate directly to the father's reality. What worked for the individual doesn't necessarily work for the family man. But this isn't failure. It's information. Your old systems need upgrading, not abandoning. Your old values need refining, not replacing. Your old goals need expanding, not eliminating. The transformation requires what Nietzsche called amor fati, love of fate. You must learn to love not just the beautiful moments of fatherhood, but the exhausting ones, the frustrating ones, the moments that test every limit you thought you had. This isn't passive acceptance, it's active embrace of the full spectrum of the experience. When you stop fighting the transformation and start working with it, you discover that fatherhood doesn't diminish your capacity for greatness. It redefines what greatness means. Instead of measuring success by individual achievement, you start measuring it by generational impact. Instead of asking what you can accomplish in your lifetime, you start asking what you can set in motion that will continue long after you're gone. Jung wrote about the collective unconscious, the shared psychological inheritance of humanity. As a father, you become a direct contributor to this inheritance. The consciousness you help shape in your children will influence their children and their children's children. Your philosophical insights, emotional intelligence, and hard-won wisdom don't die with you. They propagate through generations. This is a form of immortality that individual achievement, however impressive, cannot match. The empire builder's monuments crumble, but the father's influence on consciousness compounds across time. But here's the crucial distinction that separates conscious fathers from unconscious ones. Conscious fathers understand they're not just providing for their children, they're modeling what it means to be human. Every decision becomes a teaching moment, not through lectures but through demonstration. Your children don't primarily learn from what you tell them. They learn from who you are when you think no one is watching. This creates an interesting pressure. You can't fake authenticity around children. They sense pretense immediately. Fatherhood forces you to become genuinely who you claim to be, or your children will call you out through their behavior, their questions, their intuitive understanding of inconsistency. The men who thrive in this transformation discover that their children become their greatest teachers. Through their children's eyes, they see the world fresh again. Through their children's questions, they examine assumptions they've carried for decades. Through their children's needs, they develop capacities they didn't know they possessed. This isn't sentimentality, it's practical philosophy. Children naturally embody what Nietzsche called beginner's mind, the ability to approach each moment without preconceptions. They force you to explain concepts you thought you understood, justify values you've never questioned, demonstrate patience you've never needed. Arthur Schopenhauer wrote about the will to live, the blind drive that pushes all existence forward. But he never fully explored how this will transforms when channeled through conscious parenthood. The father's will to live becomes will for his children to thrive. This expansion of care beyond the self creates what philosophers call the transcendence paradox. By caring deeply about something beyond yourself, you don't lose yourself. You discover a larger version of yourself. Your concerns expand, but your capacity to handle those concerns expands proportionally. This brings us to the ultimate question about masculine identity in the modern world. Can a man be fully realized without the experience of guiding another consciousness through development? Not every man needs to be a biological father, but every mature man needs to engage with the generative principle. Whether through mentoring, teaching, creating, or adopting, the fully developed masculine psyche includes the capacity to nurture growth in others. This isn't about traditional gender roles. It's about complete human development. The man who only focuses on his own advancement remains psychologically adolescent, regardless of his achievements. Albert Camus wrote about the absurd, the disconnect between human need for meaning and the universe's apparent meaninglessness. But fatherhood provides a response to the absurd that Camus never fully explored. When you're shaping another consciousness, when you're contributing to the ongoing conversation of human existence, when you're adding your voice to the generational dialogue about what it means to be alive, meaning emerges naturally. Not imposed meaning, but discovered meaning that grows from engagement with something larger than individual concerns. The fear that fatherhood will diminish your authentic self reveals a misunderstanding about what authenticity means. Authenticity isn't maintaining static identity. It's remaining true to your deepest values while allowing your expressions of those values to evolve. The man who values growth doesn't stop growing when he becomes a father. He grows in new directions. The man who values creativity doesn't stop creating. He creates new forms of life and consciousness. The man who values impact doesn't stop making an impact. He makes impacts that will ripple across generations. Here's what changes when you understand fatherhood as conscious evolution rather than forced compromise. You stop seeing your children as obstacles to your goals and start seeing them as expansion of your goals. You stop measuring your success against your bachelor self and start measuring it against your potential father self. You stop trying to minimize the transformation and start trying to maximize the growth opportunities it provides. This shift in perspective changes everything. Sleepless nights become meditation on patience. Financial pressure becomes motivation for efficiency. Limited free time becomes appreciation for presence. Constant questions become opportunities for deeper thinking. The practical application of this philosophy requires what the Stoics called voluntary discomfort. Instead of resenting the challenges of fatherhood, you embrace them as training for virtues you want to develop. Instead of mourning the freedoms you've lost, you celebrate the capacities you've gained. Instead of comparing your current life to your previous life, you compare your current self to who you were before you learned unconditional love, protective instinct, and generational thinking. This isn't self-deception, it's accurate measurement of what actually matters for human development. Nietzsche's concept of eternal recurrence provides the ultimate test for fathers. Would you choose this life again with all its challenges, responsibilities, and transformations? The conscious father doesn't just say yes. He says yes with enthusiasm because he understands something profound. The struggles that seem to diminish him are actually developing him. The sacrifices that appear to limit him are actually expanding him. The responsibilities that feel overwhelming are actually strengthening him. When you view fatherhood through this lens, everything changes. You're no longer a victim of circumstances beyond your control. You're a participant in conscious evolution. The legacy question becomes unavoidable. What will outlast your physical existence? Individual achievements, however impressive, fade with time. But consciousness shaped through conscious parenthood propagates infinitely. The values you model, the thinking patterns you encourage, the emotional intelligence you develop in your children, these continue working long after you're gone. Your great-great-grandchildren will carry traces of wisdom you develop today, problems you solve now, growth you accomplish through the challenges of raising children. This is immortality through influence, permanence through propagation, significance through service to life itself. This perspective transforms how you approach every aspect of fatherhood. Discipline becomes character development. Education becomes consciousness expansion. Play becomes joy cultivation. Protection becomes strength modeling. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to contribute something valuable to the ongoing human conversation about how to live well. The man who understands this doesn't feel burdened by fatherhood. He feels privileged to participate in humanity's most important work, shaping the next generation of consciousness that will inherit and improve upon everything we've discovered about being human. The transformation from individual to father isn't the death of authenticity. It's the birth of expanded authenticity. You don't lose who you are. You discover who you're capable of becoming when your growth is motivated by love rather than ambition, by service rather than achievement, by legacy rather than immediate gratification. The men who resist this transformation spend their lives fighting against one of humanity's most powerful forces for psychological development. The men who embrace it discover that fatherhood isn't the end of their hero's journey. It's the beginning of a different kind of heroism that builds worlds rather than conquering them. This understanding reveals why some of history's greatest minds achieved their most profound insights after becoming fathers. Parenthood doesn't diminish intellectual capacity. It provides new contexts for applying that capacity. It doesn't reduce creativity. It demands creativity in solving unprecedented problems. It doesn't limit growth. It accelerates growth by forcing you to develop multiple intelligences simultaneously. The father who approaches his role consciously discovers that children don't hold you back from becoming who you're meant to be. They reveal who you're meant to become. Every challenge they present is an invitation to develop new capabilities. Every stage they go through is an opportunity for you to grow in corresponding ways. Every question they ask is a chance for you to examine your assumptions and deepen your understanding. The ultimate realization is this: fatherhood doesn't compete with authentic self-development. It is authentic self-development. The man who uses parenthood as a catalyst for conscious growth doesn't sacrifice his individual nature. He discovers what his individual nature is capable of when motivated by something beyond itself. He doesn't lose his will to power. He redirects it toward the most important power of all, the power to shape consciousness that will outlast his own existence. This is Nietzsche's self-overcoming applied to its highest purpose, transcending individual limitations through engagement with generational responsibility. The conscious father understands that his children aren't obstacles to overcome, but partners in mutual development. They challenge him to become more patient, more creative, more resilient, more loving than he ever thought possible. In return, he provides them with a model of what it looks like to embrace growth, to remain curious, to continue developing throughout life. This creates what philosophers call the virtuous cycle, each participant in the relationship inspiring growth in the other, consciousness developing consciousness, wisdom generating wisdom. When you view fatherhood through this philosophical lens, the fear of losing yourself reveals itself as the fear of becoming more than yourself. The anxiety about diminished potential reveals itself as anxiety about expanded potential. The worry about sacrificed authenticity reveals itself as worry about evolved authenticity. These fears are natural, but they're based on misunderstanding what growth requires. All development involves letting go of previous limitations to embrace new possibilities. Fatherhood simply makes this process more visible, more immediate, and more consequential. The men who master this transition discover that the qualities that made them effective as individuals, focus, determination, strategic thinking, don't disappear in fatherhood. They transform into tools for family leadership. Their independence becomes interdependence. Their self-discipline becomes family discipline. Their personal goals become generational goals. This isn't compromise, it's evolution. It's not reduction, it's expansion. It's not settling, it's ascending to a different level of human development that remains inaccessible to those who never engage seriously with the challenge of shaping another consciousness. The ultimate insight is that consciousness itself is collaborative. You didn't develop your mind in isolation. It emerged through interaction with other minds. Your children's consciousness will develop the same way, and you get to be one of the primary influences in that development. This is both a tremendous responsibility and an extraordinary privilege. The thoughts you think, the values you embody, the wisdom you've accumulated, all of this becomes raw material for creating new consciousness that will continue the human conversation about meaning, purpose, and what it means to live well. The transformation from individual to father isn't the end of philosophy. It's philosophy applied to its most important arena. Every day presents new questions about how to live, how to love, how to grow, how to contribute to something larger than yourself. The answers you develop don't just affect your own life, they shape the foundation for another life that will continue long after yours ends. This gives every moment weight, every decision significance, every interaction meaning that extends far beyond immediate consequences. Your willingness to examine these ideas reveals something important about your character. Most men avoid deep thinking about fatherhood because it forces them to confront their assumptions about identity, purpose, and what truly matters. The fact that you've engaged with these concepts shows you're ready for the kind of conscious growth that transforms not just individuals but generations. Write in the comments, "I choose growth over comfort." This simple declaration connects you with men who understand that the greatest achievements come not from avoiding challenges, but from embracing them as opportunities for development. When you publicly commit to growth, you create accountability that will serve you in every area of life, especially the most important one, shaping the next generation of human consciousness. Understanding these truths changes everything about how you approach, not just fatherhood, but life itself. The capacity for love, sacrifice, and long-term thinking that parenthood develops makes you more effective in every arena. The patience you learn from teaching children makes you a better leader. The unconditional love you develop through parenting makes you a better partner. The strategic thinking required for family planning makes you a better decision-maker in all contexts. Click subscribe because men who think this deeply about life's most important questions deserve content that matches their intellectual curiosity and practical needs. There's something else you need to understand about consciousness and responsibility that will completely transform how you see your role in the world. The next video explores a dimension of human development that most people never discover, something that explains why certain individuals seem to operate on an entirely different level of effectiveness and fulfillment. Once you understand this principle, every relationship, every challenge, every opportunity in your life will look different. The implications are so profound they'll change not just how you think about success, but how you think about what it means to be fully human.